All right, there we go. Fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
that's a nice sound.
It is. It is. And I hope you enjoy the hipster water.
Oh,
I think
yes.
what is that?
LaCroix.
LaCroix, but it's cucumber pomegranate or something. Blackberry
cucumber.
Yeah.
I've not had that particular flavor before.
Yeah,
you
may have to drink that with your pinky out.
We'll see. We'll have how it tastes first.
Cool. This is Sam Adams cherry wheat, and it's sort of a shandy. Very pleasant memories because I met my wife the year this came out, and it was kind of a winter thing because it starts coming out in the fall.
Right.
So, and it's kind of a not horribly sweet thing. I can't do the modern sugary stuff. So, another election episode. I can say this 100%. There's absolutely no way in hell I'm voting for you.
I understand.
It's not going to happen.
I understand.
Because I'm not going to move.
That's right. I don't blame you. You got a nice place here.
Thank you. Precinct 1, and you're up against, why did I just draw a blank?
Scott Ramsey.
Scott Ramsey, Midland County Precinct 1. And that is mostly, if I remember from writing tickets on the street, that is sort of southwest.
Southwest,
Okay.
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
Mostly west of Midkiff or west of 349?
Kind of Andrews Highway kind of circles around and becomes and yes, Midkiff is the, there's one section of it that goes on around to past Midkiff at Illinois, but then it kind of comes back in and goes down to the interstate, and then it cuts over to 1230 and then west from there.
Okay, and up takes in the airport?
Takes in the airport, yes. And then 191 is the northern, the primary northern boundary.
And then it's kind of patchy within the city limits, right?
And it's kind of to get the vote
right.
demographics within a certain percentage, they have to kind of move it around. It does take in most of grassland.
Okay, that's right. I don't know anything about it in the city. I'm in kind of a weird single cutout into Precinct 2. Just sort of dips down and grabs a couple of blocks in my neighborhood and goes north of Scarborough. And so if you had to explain what a commissioner does, something like a city council sort of?
Somewhat. The county commissioner is basically oversees the budgets of all of the other departments of the county. They also all of the particular spendings have to go through the county, commissioner's court. Okay. Also.
I have to admit a certain level of ignorance despite working for the county for 28 years, mainly because I'm a terrible person, and unless it affected me personally or my crew, or it was something I could immedately affect, it all kind of faded into the static.
That doesn't make you a terrible person. That just makes you one that you have to focus on living.
That's, good point. Well, we've talked about on this podcast before, I didn't know how to explain what was going on in my head as I neared my mid-30s. But someone smarter than me said, we're at a point now where we're taking in so much information in the internet age and electronic age that our drives are full. And we just, no matter how sharp your brain is, there's only so much you can retain that you're not constantly using. So I had to put on a filter. And now that I have, I've chemoed a bunch of my brain away and I have the attention span of a parakeet anyhow, I really have to kind of get narrow. So you and I have never met before.
No, sir.
And I very much appreciate you, and I'm honored that you asked to come here. And I do, with anyone that comes on here that I'm not familiar with, I Facebook and internet stalk you, which I did. And first thing I saw on your Facebook profile is you playing keyboards on the stage. And then you were wearing a stingy brim fedora and then a driver hat. So I went and got mine when you walked in with yours. I thought, okay, this guy's got to be cool because that's just the mark.
I definitely appreciate that. And I hope you don't mind. The sleeves.
If it's warm in here, we can cool it off.
No. Just to move those a little bit.
My lovely bride is cold natured, and my thermostat
so
is
mine.
completely broken. So I have no idea.
No, I'm good. But yeah, my wife has finally got to the point where she went from complaining about my fedoras and my drivers and my Kangles to she actually buys some for me now.
Oh, there you go. When we were talking, kind of getting to know each other earlier, I'm in the Masons, and when you're in the East, when you're the master of the lodge for a year, it's you're like the president of the club, the grand poobah for a year for that group. It's a tradition that you wear a hat when the lodge is open, and most guys wear cowboy hats. And I wore one when I was on the streets, and I have this big giant one for hiking and fishing and stuff like that. But I don't like wearing them indoors. And I'm tall and I bang my head on stuff, so I got a couple of I noticed some of the old guys on our photographs of the earlier worshipful masters of the lodge had the fedoras and stuff, from back in the 50s and all, super cool Don Draper kind of guys. Yep. I thought, I'm going to make a statement. That's going to be me. So
I do own a cowboy hat. In fact, I own two. I have one that I wear. I won't say dress, but it's just for occasions, and then there's the work hat.
Yeah. I have. In fact, I still have my very first straw hat from the sheriff's office, and then I picked up one in Mexico. It's one of those things, you have these strange relationships, like with hats and pocket knives. And I put it on the market. We were like down in Colima, and I put it on, and I'm like, we were going on a hiking trip. And I put it on. I'm like, this is my hat. And I actually scaled a pretty steep wall in the Guadalupe Mountains to bring it up. It blew off my head. I broke the strap. I caught it on some brush, and it blew off, and I had to go down and grab it. So that hat and I are pretty tight. And I still mow the lawn in it and all that. So how did you make the decision to do the commissioner thing?
Well, I've lived in Midland since '82. I've lived in Precinct 1 quite a bit of my life. The house I live in right now, I've been there for 26 years. Have been involved in some of the Republican Party politics as a precinct chair, and previous to resigning from the position to run, actually served as vice chair. So I knew a lot of the players and characters in local government, state, and around, and just saw some things that, to me, misguided and priorities in how spending was being done in the county. And that's what really brought me to make the decision to run.
I looked at, again, in the pre-episode stalking, and you made an interesting statement, and we just talked about it a little while ago while we were getting set up, about independent thought. And about being able to listen to other sides and not necessarily sort of going with the zeitgeist and the conventional way of thinking. And you had some really interesting words on that I'd like to hear again.
Well, to get the platitudes out of the way, I do believe that you've got to have independent thought. You've got to... regardless of what your own core convictions are, if they're core convictions, you need to hold to them. But you also need to be willing to listen to the other side. I like to think, and I've gotten to the age where I try not to have false modesty about my abilities. I know where I am in the pecking order as a musician. I can step in and not embarrass myself, but I'm not going to be the star.
If you need lessons on having no pride in embarrassing yourself at any cost, I'll help you out with that. Yeah, we'll get to that.
But at the same time, even though I think I'm a very smart person, I don't know everything. And like you said, we can only hold so much information, and then we've got to listen to those other perspectives, because those perspectives have life and substance and what's the word I'm trying to think of?
I'm at a loss too. I know exactly what you're saying.
There's experience to them. There's a life experience that's connected to most of the things that drive our thoughts. It doesn't matter if, say, for example, for me, I've made a choice not to drink alcohol. Part of the things that drives that choice was seeing older family members that were alcoholics.
Right.
And so that I made that choice based on that. Do I think that as a very conservative Christian, do I think that if I happen to have a drink of alcohol that all of a sudden I'm going to burst into flames? No, I don't think that.
I'm a Catholic. We drink in church.
Yeah.
it's in the contract.
It's in the contract. That's right.
Right. That's a great perspective, and I hate to see anything, especially in today's political climate, that closes the mind. And really interesting movie. You may have seen it. I watched it because I'm a Bryan Cranston fan. Was there it went. He played the blacklisted Hollywood writer. Oh, Trumbo. Trumbo was the movie. Anyway, it's about writers accused of communism, and of course, in this case, they were blacklisted from Hollywood,
Mm-hmm.
and it kind of went downhill. And we're seeing now the opposite of that in the cancel culture, where rather than
Mm-hmm.
the government suppressing, it's the people suppressing, and certain things we say on this podcast will get us deprioritized or blocked or banned or whatever. I mean, I actually made
Facebook jail.
Yeah, I got put in Facebook jail for an anti-Hitler. Like I was making fun of Hitler, and I got a 24-hour ban. Yeah. And I think I really like your words and what I've read about you and what we said earlier about being able to hear and understand, if nothing else, to work a strategy against. Because if you just close up, you're not going to learn. And there's good and bad to be learned everywhere, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So,
well, when once I figure out everything, then I'll fix everybody else. But for anybody listening, don't hold your breath.
Yeah, people who think they know everything really annoy those of us who do.
Yes,
that's my experience.
I completely understand your feeling.
Have you ever run for office before? Ever held an office or
not? High school, college,
yeah.
Simple things like that. But no, not in.
What's the election road been like?
Encompassing.
That's what everyone says.
I knew it wasn't going to be a simple task. I had seen enough and helped others enough in the past to understand that. But when you are the candidate, it's just
even local. You're under a microscope.
Even local, you are under a microscope. You guard your conversation more.
Mm-hmm.
You definitely guard what you post on social media more.
Yes, sir.
And I guess that's not 100% a bad thing, because at least you are thinking about how it might affect someone. But at the same time, if you are doing that and compromising a core value, then that's a
good point.
That's not a good thing.
And even though I'm retired, there's a lot of things that I won't say, a lot of opinions that I'll still keep to myself. Number one, I don't want to get into it. I don't want to fight with people. And I've learned that 90% of the people or more, if you contradict, you get into that confirmation bias echo chamber realm. All you're doing is creating hate and not actual speech. That's why I love conversations like this, where you can get in and actually kind of forge some new neural pathways with people that may
Yes.
not be in the same situation, because I've had those. One of my experiences was working in the jail for like 9 years, and understanding how those guys, the people locked up in jail, how they think and what they've experienced, whether I agree with it or not, again, made me a better cop and it made me a better person.
Yeah,
I think
exactly.
so.
Exactly.
But I can't imagine. Brandon Batch had probably the most exhaustive campaign. I think the guy probably only gets to sleep at stoplights, as busy as he is. But even the local folks, it's been amazing.
Those guys that are doing the CD11 race for that. I mean, 29 counties. I've got a portion of a county,
Right.
And I'm still like, I don't know how they do it. I admire them, whether I agree with, whatever particular point it is. I do agree or don't agree with them. To put yourself out there like that.
That's admirable, and I have a lot of respect for you guys wanting to run. I know Commissioner's Court, you guys get a salary, and
Yes, there is a salary.
It's not quite as volunteer as some of the others, but just to do that job, I was, drive back and forth to Houston, MD Anderson all the time, and like I was looking at the road construction, and my wife and I got in a conversation. There was a meme going around where it's a picture of Roman road, like the ancient Roman roads that are still there,
Right.
and they were complaining that these were built, ancient Roman times, and they're still there. And here's, Midkiff or whatever with potholes in it. I'm like, it's kind of apples and oranges. And I every time I hear one of you guys on the radio, people are complaining. I think I want to say it was J. Ross Lacey. I'm probably got that wrong, but I was going to work one morning before I retired. And I turned on the radio, and he was talking, and a guy called in and just spewed out every bad thing you hear about local politicians to this person. Again, I think it was Mr. Lacey. He's the one running for Congress, right?
He's one of them.
Okay,
running.
it was him.
Yes.
And this guy, you're doing it for money, you're blah, blah, and all this stuff. And he contradicted every point. He goes, no, this is what I've done. Okay, I've tried to cut taxes here, and I've done this and that. And it just seems like no matter what the people in that office do, you're going to deal with just a whole lot of negative. Like and I know this is strange coming from a cop, but it's like you just get this giant shovel full of manure in your lap when you get that job. How do you feel about that, and what's your perspective on that?
Well, that's that comes with the territory, and that's one of the things you have to weigh before you decide to sign up to try to do this. I have no one of the op-eds I wrote, I said nobody's going to be liked by everybody, and if they are, it's going to be for a very, very short period of time.
That is insightful. I love it.
And so those kind of things, when you're never going to please anybody. Can't do that. Usually even within your own family, even when you have a wonderfully functioning family, there's always going to be things to work out. There's always going to be give and take that has to be done. And it is magnified when you're in an elected office. And so you know that going in, throwing another platitude out here. My slogan that I came up with from the very beginning was leadership through stewardship.
It's good.
And because the monies that I will have responsibility for, not authority for, I caught myself later saying that, because that's not, you don't have authority over it, you have responsibility for it. It's not your money being the court's money. It's Matt's money, it's Leonard's money, it's everyone else that lives here's money. It's not. And so that, to me, that puts a greater responsibility on how I do that.
I had not seen that slogan, and I'm just sitting here processing it. That's brilliant. I was kind of steeped in leadership all the way from high school and Civil Air Patrol, and wanted to become a leader and became a leader. And looking around the other people in charge of units and things of that nature, people resources and all, from police and the Coast Guard and all the stuff I've done, the ones who had a stewardship approach were the best. That's the way to do it. I like that. That's really sharp.
Well, that's my goal. That's I'm not going to make any promises other than I'm going to try.
Yeah. That's something I've always wondered. You go to job interviews and they ask questions about what you're going to do and what you're going to change and how are you going to handle this issue. And you have to sit there just kind of dead face and go, I won't know till I'm there. I won't know till I see everything. And it's just like, presidential candidates. When I was in Intel loops, and I'm going to get in here and I'm going to do this with the Mideast war and all that. And I'm going,
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Wait till your first briefing, Kat. We'll see how that goes. I mean, that's been, 2 or 3 presidents deep for me. And just I like the idea of, I'll have to see when I get there, but
the only time that I ever was very blunt like that, you mentioned job interview, it brought back a memory. Back in the late 80s, I went to work for Radio Shack out of the mall, and I was actually hired on as Christmas help.
I remember you from that. I do. Okay.
And so but when I went in for that interview, he goes, the gentleman who was the manager, he goes, so why should I hire you? I said, because I'm going to make you money and I'm going to make me money. And that's kind of out of my nature to say that, but I just felt like that's what I needed to do.
It's good.
And I got the job, ended up actually becoming a manager for another store for a period of time, was with him for about 3 or 4 years.
So you were in the mall in 89.
Yeah.
You sold me a Tandy WP100 word processor.
Oh my gosh.
I remember that. Strange the things I can't remember. That was my first semester at Midland College in criminal justice, and I pretty much lived in the parts section in the back of Radio Shack, and I remember that distinctly because we were running Telegraph Road, the bulletin board, and I was trying to figure out the modem capabilities on it, and I remember taking it out of the box and all that, and I remember.
Yeah, so what were those 300? Or were they even that fast?
I bought a scratch and dent 1200 baud dial up.
Ooh, you had a
you
had a fast one.
Yeah, it was taped together. I bought it from Service Merchandise, and I don't remember what I paid for it, but it was banged up, and I still have it. And it still works.
Wow!
But we could run Telegraph Road from a phone line.
My wife and I bought our wedding bands from. In fact, and I don't have mine. It's lost in my couch. We know where it is, but we just cannot find it for about 3 months now. But our first wedding bands, mine was, it was one of those where you buy the wife's band and you get the husband, the male band just is kind of thrown in. And we used to have a joke because it had 2 little speck diamonds in it, and we called them canarly diamonds. Meaning you could canarly see it.
I love it. That's great. We our wedding bands are matching, and they're in Hebrew, Song of I
Yes.
am my beloved, my beloved is mine.
Mm-hmm.
And we got married, and I literally carried her. This is in 2000. God, when did we get married? 2001.
Don't forget that.
Yeah, I know. Numbers. I can remember the guy that sold me a word processor in 1989, and now my wedding date. And carried her across the threshold, and the yard was a mess. It was worse than it is now, and I cleaned it up and got cold, and my hands kind of shrunk up, and I got done, and I was on my day off. I was a patrolman, and she came home, gave me a hug. She says, "Where's your wedding band?" I'm like, "Wow, I have no idea. So I went and probably bribed the evidence guy with lunch, but I got the sheriff's office's metal detector and couldn't find it. And even now that my buddies and I have gotten into metal detecting, I've gotten a really good metal detector out here and never found it. But she bought another one like right after that. So, and then I got she found a set. They were silver, and I forget the language on those. And I wore that when I was deployed in the Coast Guard. I don't know why. I had 2 wedding bands, so I said, well, here, you can take this one, and later when I'm gone, you say this is one your dad wore when he was deployed. So. That was it. I love stories like that.
Yes.
But yours is in a couch somewhere.
Mine, I can even tell you the section of the couch it's in, but we haven't been able to find it. We don't want to cut the couch open. We kind of like the couch.
Yeah. Yeah, I know what you mean. I can't imagine. I was working on a computer part, and I dropped a computer thing, and I dropped a part back in my office with carpet that was engineered to hide any small part, and I spent 2 hours doing the armorer's crawl down there till I found it. But that's crazy. But one of the things I did want to ask is this sort of an unusual election climate to you? I mean, it is to me, and I don't know if that's just because there are things going on with the commissioner's court, with the sheriff's office, with the DA's office, and all these other positions and things going around, and I was kind of in the middle of it, but it just kind of feels different to me.
It does feel different. It feels like, the sheer number of people that are running and the number of offices that are either open or are being contested, that for Midland County, that's quite unusual.
Yeah. I noticed I was looking at somebody's Facebook page, and in one, they're supporting a local candidate that's been in office a very long time, and then right under it is a complaint about term limits. and so I'm thinking, who knows? It's
the concept of term limits to me, it makes sense, but also we have term limits. We get to vote every time, and if we decide to vote that person back in.
Right.
I mean, there are usually those that are in an office for a long period of time. It's usually because either, number one, they're doing, they've accomplished something, almost always. And especially for like a state representative or like the CD11, the job of those people part of their job is to bring some of the tax money that we send off to either Washington, D.C. or to Austin, respectively, and to give some of that money back. That's part of their job. And sometimes the concept of that is lost on people.
Yeah. One of the things I wanted to ask about, and I've got to plead some ignorance on this. I've talked to people on, I guess, more or less both sides of it. Is the horseshoe kind of a litmus test in where you're headed in commissioner's court right now? That seems to be a hot button, and I don't completely understand it.
I always start off by saying that, and you said you've used when we were talking earlier that you've actually performed out there.
Yeah, we were the Tim Kreitz band. We were the first band to play on that stage. We kind of rang it out when they first set up the lights and all.
It is a amazing facility.
Yeah.
It is just an amazing facility. To me, one of the big issues is, number one, how it has expanded so much to the point that as an event center that it takes away from a potential entrepreneur opening up their own event center.
Okay.
That they would be a small business, and that would be paying in tax money.
Right.
The other thing that seems to be to me, this is part of the crux of the issue with the horseshoe, is the operation. It's being operated by a third-party group, and before Judge Johnson took office, after he was elected, they renewed the contract early and extended it for a 5-year period, which would go past his first term if he decides to run for re-election in 2024, I think, or 2022. What we have in place may be the best thing for the county as far as having an outside third-party group doing the operations, rather than having that in-house, making sure that we have the right trained people to be able to do the events. But the way the contract is set up right now, that can't be looked at to be decided. And that's the issue, the transparency of it.
Okay. That makes
And the
sense.
responsibility to the county, to the people of the county, and in my case to the people of Precinct 1, in how the monies are being spent, how we are operating. And we need to operate as openly as possible. Most of the county budget is available online. It is very, very difficult to navigate.
It is impossible. I've had to buy paper clips on the county budget. I know what you're talking about. Yeah, I never did really understand it, and honestly, I didn't put my head in it because on one hand, I understand the issue. I think it was when Judge Johnson came in that I first heard about the contract extension and didn't really get it. And I don't think I've ever met Judge Johnson. I've seen him in court and at the courthouse, I think. But when I started hearing about that, my first thought was, that is not the sort of thing I can see the government running well, or a government. That's my first thought was, well, you need someone that runs event centers, because I'm not aware of any that make money.
Well,
I mean,
no.
if
to me,
that's the
it shouldn't necessarily be. With it being since it is under the purview of the county,
Right.
it is a what we like to say quality of life issue. We have this facilities available,
Right.
for the county. I do question. There are sometimes questions about the way that that the group that is running it does some certain things. I've never been involved in any business, even that I was a part of, that I liked everything they did.
Right.
I like to tell people that if I know that I'm a little bit older than you are, so I can use it this way.
There you go.
If you and I agree on every single thing in life, I was here first. There's no reason for you to exist. And I
like that. That's cool. I really like that. Yeah.
But we don't.
Right.
I mean, there's times I don't agree with myself, I think, sometimes.
I'm there. Yeah.
So
It's like, what is this, Tuesday, Thursday? Okay, here's what I'm into today. Yeah.
Right. So, but there has to be some guidelines. There has to be some agreement with how it's done. And so I think that unfortunately personalities have become more of an issue than issues.
I think, and I can't read my notes here. My brain's a lot clearer than it was, but I'm still kind of foggy. I hope this makes sense. But you mentioned, you said in one of the, I don't know if it was a forum or what, but you used the term cabal describing how some of the, was that you?
Yes.
Or you were referring to
that was me.
And I've heard that before, and I see two camps, and I think I like the approach you're taking of kind of a logical stance, even if you don't necessarily agree with who would normally be your side. Is that kind of where we are?
Right. I mean,
that?
And going back to what you had mentioned before about being an independent thinker, one of the things that has driven the horseshoe conversation it's some of the more high profile, shall we say, decisions that the court has made, has been what they call the 3-2.
Right.
Again, going into my platitudes, I'm not planning on being part of the 3. I'm not planning on flipping the 2 to be a new 3. I'm elected to be a representative of the people of Precinct 1. That's my focus. There are going to be times where I'll agree with all 4 of the other 3 commissioners and the judge. There'll be times I won't. And I'm not going in there looking to be aligned with any particular person or group of people. I'm in there to serve the people.
I remembered I came to work at the DA's office. I'm drinking coffee, and when the 3-2 term was first coined, and for everyone who understands that, that's the vote of 5 people.
There's 5 people, right?
The judge, 4 commissioners, precincts 1 through 4, county judge, and then on a lot of issues, the judge and 1 other commissioner were voting consistently, and the others voting against him. And so what is this bizarro world? Because there's 1 Democrat in all of that, and he and the judge are voting together predominantly on a lot of things. I'm like, is this a bizarro world? Because it just seems like it is very interesting. And as far as, and this is my personal opinion, I'm not the only one that has this opinion, that and as a lifelong Republican, I have problems with having to say this, but this is my true observation, that the Democrat on the court is usually more consistently fiscally conservative and fiscally than the other 4. I've heard that, and again, I can't just I don't have an opinion because I didn't follow it that closely. Again, if it didn't affect whether or not I got a new work card that year, I probably wasn't paying attention. Again, I had a lot on my mind around these times. But it is good. It's Luis Sanchez, Precinct 3.
Yes.
Yeah. I've met him, and I've heard good things out of me on the fiscal side of it. And I'm going to mess this up, but I'm one of those people that I complain about. So when they built it's like Jimmy Buffett, we're the people our parents warned us about.
Yes.
When they built the sports complex, I was in no way in favor of it because of the way it was being dealt with and the surprise costs. And, you want it with electricity? Yeah, we can take care of that, right? It's not in the budget, but that sort of thing. And I was dead set against it.
Indoor plumbing?
Yeah. Oh, you want the toilets inside? Okay, well, we'll take the outhouses off of this and we'll move them over here. And I was frustrated with all that. So I was the typical guy complaining about it, probably on Craig Anderson's show. I used to call it a bunch when I worked evenings. And so fast forward many years later, and I'm retired, and I'm kind of following baseball again after many decades of just not following anything but rugby and fencing, the 2 weirdest sports you can think of. And I'm out here with my son drinking a beer, watching it. I go, man, this place is pretty nice, and then there's that side of me that thinks with all the money here that Midland should look like Dubai. Like we should have gold-plated water fountains with all the money here. Whether or not we get a return on it, it's just something that should be. And I know that's not right, but does that kind of make sense as somebody looking for office and to run for office?
Well, I'm not looking for any gold-plated water fountains or anything like that.
But it's not a bad idea, right? Well, I mean,
it's not a bad idea if we take care of all the basics first.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, we all like to have nice things. We all need to have those things like Scarborough Complex, the Horseshoe, those the different city parks to those are quality of life issues that are going to keep my son's generation and on here in Midland to make it continue to make it a wonderful place to live, good place to raise kids. But if we don't take care of the basics, then
if you don't have a road
matter.
to get there and the water's not going to work.
Right. and you don't have guys like you that that did law enforcement that are willing to put yourselves out there. If we don't take care of those people, they're going to go find that job somewhere else.
Yeah. Geez, man, that's a nightmare. How short the police department is right now, and just keeping those guys around in the vacuum when that oil industry when the oil industry picked up, just the absolute people vacuum when they're paying. I was a sergeant and I was getting overtime to leave my office at 5:00 and go work a shift in the jail turning keys. We were so short on people.
All right.
And that's something, and government, it's the nature of it and the nature of our representative government that it's hard to not be kind of trailing on things, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
We're not always ahead of the problem. We're not always prepared for it because you can't do what a private company can do. And just over a 9-hole morning session and a wet lunch, go, all right, we're just going to dump a ton of money into this to get ahead of the competition. We have a process.
Right.
So
there, and I say unfortunately because we want to see the things happen now.
Right.
But the fact that we have that process means that we are, at least theoretically, we're all talking about it to figure out what's going to be best for the entire community.
Right.
Doing real life, whether it's in government, I worked as a substitute teacher off and on for 20 years in Midland. Had a number of times where I was fortunate to have some long-term assignments there. So I actually got to be where those were my kids, not just a group of kids that I saw for that day. Anytime that you take the time to invest in people, and that's what the community is. It's not, we talk about that the county is responsible for infrastructure and public safety, and we try to, institutionalize that. But it all comes down to the community and the people, and that process is messy and complicated and frustrating and rewarding and all of those things all at the same time in varying degrees.
Yep.
And but for myself, I believe Midland County is worth it.
I do too. And Tim Kreitz and I, we talk about this a lot. And we both grew up here, and it's a decent place. And it can always be better. And one of the conversations we had, I don't know if it was recorded in here, but when we talked about things like the sports complex and the convention center and all that.
Mm-hmm.
I guess where we landed on the conversation was, don't try to convince me we're going to make money, that it's going to draw people here or anything. We just want to have something nice. Right. That was kind of my attitude about it.
And that is one of the things that, going back specifically to one of the things that brought me into this race, that the way that the horseshoe is being presented, one of the things that they do on a budgetary level, without getting too boring here, is that all of the tax that the county gets from motel hotel,
right,
is shown as a revenue line item for the horseshoe. Now, I mean, anybody with any honesty knows that
Right.
with the economy that we have, with the man camps, with the shortage of housing, that every hotel room from whatever year, 2018, that came in was not a direct result of something that happened at the horseshoe.
Right.
It just...
Yeah, that is, I remember hearing about that. Yeah.
And even if it's just, and just that it's presented that way, to me is just, it does, to quote a movie, I can't remember the name of the movie, but it's the movie where I think it's Incredible Journey, the three animals that got lost and then they had to travel all the way across the California mountains.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that'll come to me.
I can remember the there was two dogs and a cat, but anyway, the dogs Homeward Bound.
Yeah.
Yes, and Shadow, the old Irish setter, always used to like to say, "That just doesn't smell right."
Right. Yeah, I've talked about that a lot. That inherent sixth sense that we have.
All right.
That makes sense. I really love the attitude that you have about it, and it's refreshing to hear somebody with a pragmatic approach on it. Just from what you hear on the radio and what you read on Facebook about those kind of things, it's good to hear someone in the know with some ideas.
Well, and I truly think that the majority of the people running for any office, when they're willing to lower the shield and be real, are much more pragmatic in their daily lives than what the platitudes that we have to spew to be good politicians.
Right. Well, there's I think it's I guess the proper term would be cognitive dissonance. And the example I give people is people would say all cops are, I don't want to use the World War II term, are oppressive dictators or bullies or whatever, right? Yeah, I don't want to say that because I'd be like, hey, Matt, I recorded your video and nobody can see it. That all cops are authoritarian dictators or whatever, and they'll say, wait, so you're a cop, really? Yeah, been a cop for a long time. But you play bass in a band and you do all this stuff. And I go, yeah. So, okay, well, all cops are jerks except you. and my cousin. Right. He's cool. We used to smoke weed together in high school, but he's a cop now, but he's still cool. Okay, well, how many cops do you know? Well, you and my cousin, but the rest of them are all jerks. So by the time you spend time in elevators with these people like I have, you understand most of it's just people trying to do the right thing. We got nut jobs, don't get me wrong. We've had a few over the course of my career. But for the most part, I see good people trying to do the right thing. And well, we do wind up...
The devil's in the details.
The devil's in the details, and you have to be detail people, and you have to understand the numbers. And, yeah, I was telling my wife, I really want to go to Vegas. My friend Jim, he's the one... We did a podcast. He's a computer guy. He brought me a TRS-80 T-shirt, because we both used to have TRS-80s. But...
Trash 80s.
Trash 80, yeah. His wife's an accountant, and we went to a concert. We caught the Brian Setzer Orchestra, doing their Christmas thing, and it was amazing. And then we had time to kill. We weren't tired yet, so we went to the casino, and that was the first time I played blackjack with an accountant, and that was an experience, because I learned, like pretty much anyone else. I sort of learned the basics of the MIT system and did the best I could. That is a detail-oriented person. She cleaned up. It was really interesting, and didn't play a lot of blackjack. But like I said, the devil's in the details, and she explained the details to me at one point as she was doing it, and I'm thinking, this is how it's done.
Yeah. Wow.
Right here. Well, I noticed you guys have done a lot of good things. You mentioned that came up in your articles about the fire department and the money that's going there from the commissioner's court, right?
Mm-hmm.
And expanding services. One of the first things I did was answer a medical call at SkyWest, far south end of Midkiff, right?
Yeah.
And it was a guy having heart trouble. He was okay. He was sitting on the couch, but he was probably having a heart attack. And I'm thinking, man, every fire station is a long way from here and it needs expansion. We always had animal control problems. And so close to $1 million, or right at $1 million, to the new one that the commissioner's court's doing. And
right.
Because these are all good things, right? It's kind of what we need to be doing with our money.
Sure. Like I said, as long as we're taking care of the basics, these are all kind of things that matter. And to me, the fire, anything to do with public safety is absolutely essential. The one thing, again, after the basics are taken care of, that I would love to see in Midland County, that Odessa, and I know it has to be driven by the city. It has to come from there because the fire department's under the purview of the city. But Odessa and Ector County have the EMS Lifeline program and have for decades. I've never understood why Midland did not embrace that.
I was going to. You're stirring up so many memories. I came on duty one day. I left my house. And it was one of those things where we would have to be at the office by 4:30. Mm-hmm. But typically you come in, you go, we call it 10:41, about 15 minutes after, just to let dispatch know you're on the air, let your boss know that you remembered you're supposed to come to work today and you're driving in, and immediately you're starting to get dispatch calls. Just bam, bam, bam. The boss says, hey, when you come to the office, we'll have coffee later. Just don't worry about it. And so the first thing I had to do during rush hour traffic was drive way out to a house back behind Pee Wee Dalton's for somebody who was having, a young woman who was having abdominal pain. And it was like somebody with the flu. And on the way, I heard the commercial for that service. I'm like, why don't we have this?
And it's been since the 80s.
Yeah. I remember I was in high school when I started hearing, when I was driving on my own, I was hearing that commercial all the time. Yeah, a lot of stuff like that. We are coming around up on an hour, and this sort of happened organically with everybody else that's been on here. That what's been interesting throughout my life and careers is learning what people do when they're not doing their job, and that the people that are typically especially in law enforcement, the least fulfilled in life and the most miserable in their job are people who don't do anything but the job. So right off the bat, I'd like to talk about music and learn kind of how that's happened and what you do and what you're doing now.
For myself, I've been fortunate to be playing music forever. My dad, we had guitars. When I was 8 years old, I believe, he got an Epiphone 4-string bass and a custom 100 amp. You remember the big foam amps?
Yeah, with like the vinyl, the shiny sort of glittery vinyl.
Yeah.
Is that the one? Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and this was
Do you have the curly cord?
Had the curly cord.
Yeah,
and it was separate head from the speaker. Mm-hmm. And so that's where I first started playing the bass guitar some. And also I started taking piano lessons some at that age. And Merle Haggard.
Yep.
You had to know Merle Haggard. Yep. And you had to, and if you played with my dad, you had to do Merle Haggard in the key of D.
It's usually G, right?
He's usually G, but my
Right.
dad's voice was a little different. In his case, it was always in the key of D. And so, played around with that. Of course, got into a little rock and roll, of course, and being a child of the 70s.
Can't help it, man. That was a beautiful time to be
And
in
it's
rock and
just
roll.
amazing music. Still love playing that, especially on the bass.
What's your band? Especially for playing bass.
Wow.
My
Favorite band. If I could go back, I obviously never got to see them in person. If I could go back and see any one band, it would be Creedence.
Yeah, well, that's a good one to do.
Love Creedence.
Yeah.
My first two rock concerts were both outdoor concerts. I grew up in Michigan, and were both outdoor concerts, and within about 7 months of each other, it's Bob Seger and the Silver Bullet Band.
Oh yeah, grew up with that. That was
And that was amazing. One of the things that was so cool to me was the saxophone player had his own stage. They had platform stages outside, and the saxophone player had his own stage, just like a box, maybe time and a half as big as your table here.
Right on. That's pretty cool. I grew up. I came into rock and roll in the early '80s, so I was 10 in 1980, and my mom was a Beatlemaniac.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of in the blood. A lot of country because we were my family was farming, ranching stuff way back. She brought home Dire Straits' "Sultans of Swing" one time, gave it to me, and that was a 70. What was that album? 79,
Mm-hmm.
and that was my sound. So, you still playing now?
I do. I play primarily in church. I'm the keyboard player for our worship team. I do occasionally get to slide over to the bass.
All right.
That's my love. That's my first love.
What is your dream bass rig? We're going to get deep into some bottom feeder geekdom.
Oh gosh.
I own my dream rig.
I'm looking right there. I actually this was, oh gosh, I don't even know how long ago this was, but I saw a bass over at the time it was still called In Tune.
Yeah.
And I happened to be in there on a Tuesday night, and one of the guys, for some reason it was really busy that night. I don't know why, but one of the employees called me over. He says, "Hey, I need you to come to the back room." And he introduced me to a guy who was a rep for Fender, and he was on his way to Amarillo to meet up with George Strait's band. And he opened up the case, and it was this beautiful blue 5-string Fender Precision fretless.
Oh, wow. Did it have the Jocko epoxy neck?
Yes.
Is that the one?
Yes.
Wow.
And, all kind of custom things that this guy, and actually got to just finger that for a few minutes, and that was a lot of fun.
There's something about those Fenders. Just the sound, the thunder in them. That one's in 1972, and I think Judge Johnson's. We had a little Facebook conversation one time. He posted a picture, and I think his is the same 72 or thereabouts. Because mine, I left the ashtray and the cover on mine, and he said he has his, and they're still in the case. And I have a B15, an Ampeg B15.
Right.
So
my dad actually has, and my dad's not a real good player. He had a really good ear for mixing, and so a lot of local bands there that were going to take their shot at Nashville or whatever would have him come in and mix tapes for them. But he still has a 65 Candy Apple Red Telecaster. Doesn't have he was mad because that was one of the
lipstick.
Yeah.
Lipstick pickups. Outstanding.
Yeah. And, like I say, I don't know that he plays it at all anymore, but has it. I actually kind of like one of the setups that I have. I'm at our church. I have a Nord Stage 2 keyboard.
That one does the Hammond B3 thing real well, right?
It has a real nice Hammond B3. It's got even just the presets, not even fooling with mixes your own. You can pull in organ, keyboards, and string synth, and just by the touch of a button bring them in and out as you're real nice. And then on the side I have a 61 key Yamaha straight piano besides that. So my pastor said that on certain songs that I remind him of the keyboard player for Yes, because I don't pay attention to the crowd. I'm down here doing your
these. Your thing. So all you need is like a cape, right? And isn't that the one that wore the capes in the 70s? And yeah, fantastic, man. I love all that stuff. I played in a church for a while, and a lot of it was pretty tough. The music director was a pastor's wife, and I forget specifically her music background, but it was amazing. So it was tough for a regular rock band hack like me to get in there, because I don't sight read. I barely read music. Mm-hmm. You know Nashville chart stuff.
Right, exactly. And that's primarily what we do in our setting, is the Nashville notes and that kind of stuff. Occasionally, if I'm trying to if I want to replicate a particular arpeggiation on the keyboard, then I'll look for the music so I can pull that together. But
yeah, you put those dead flies on a page in front of me, and it's like my first week on the guitar, where I'm not that guy. We are pushing an hour, and I know you got places to be. I guess we're late in the game. It's early voting right now. We're recording this on Thursday. What is the day? The 20th.
20th.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One more day of early voting. We'll try to get this video out tomorrow.
We've got early voting all the way to the 28th.
Oh,
actually,
28th.
and through the weekend too.
That's right. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I'm so visual with calendars. I'm messing all that up. But one thing we do tell everyone, please be aware that your candidates, most of the offices are going to be or many of the offices and yours are going to be decided in the primary, because there is no Democratic opposition in your case.
That is correct.
So if you look at the calendar and wait for the general election, your guy's not going to be there. So be sure to get out and vote. I did early today, and breeze, went in and out, no problem. Any events coming up? Anything you'd like folks to know about? Websites?
Our website is Dumire 4 Commish, all lowercase, Dumire, the number 4 commish.com, and would love to see you go there. Check us out. We've got kind of what our issues, what we're trying to cover, what we feel like is most important. Also, as far as specific events, we're just a lot of them are kind of private, home meet and greets. Right. It's kind of where we're at right now. I don't know of any more candidate forums that they're going to be pulling us into right now. Those have always been very interesting.
Amen. This has been strange. I was out of town for all of them, but caught some of the feeds and video, and yeah, that was some of them. I wished I would have been there just to eat popcorn and watch. It's fantastic.
Yeah,
you have an active Facebook page too for your campaign.
Yes, we have an active Facebook page for the campaign, and I'm trying to remember what it's actually called.
I don't remember, but if you put your name in it, it'll come up.
Right.
It's right there, your personal page, and then that one, and it has your banner, and you're still doing yard signs. Did you bring me a yard sign, by the way?
I think my son already did that, yeah.
Did he? Okay. I go out and it rains and there's 3 more signs pop up, so fantastic. We had to take a little necessity break, which I clipped those out, but I came up with something really cool. This is the
oh my god
Tandy WP2. I said 100. The WP2 word processor that you sold me in 1989. How about that?
Oh my gosh.
Remember those cats? And it works. I don't think I took the
is-
batteries out of it, but
That is amazing. That's in pretty good shape.
it is, and it has burned all the way through to my first laptop. I don't remember when that was, but it does still work. You have to do a USB to RS-232 juggling act to get anything off of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, right there on the back, it's got the 9-pin jack for a cassette. And the little
Was that a
RS-232.
20, what is that, a 25 pin for the printer?
Yeah, the parallel.
The parallel printer.
No, wait, that's a serial. Yeah, it's a
That's a
serial
serial
printer.
printer.
Because I had in the backpack, I carried the serial to parallel, and then I was gonna grab it, but also have the big modem that sticks in there. So pretty cool
Wow.
memory, and it is in good shape.
That is
I took care of
amazing.
it. Well, fantastic! It was great to meet you. Best of luck in your campaign.
Yes, I thoroughly
Yeah.
enjoyed this. I've
Fantastic.
thoroughly gotten glad to get to know you, and you're quite a fascinating cat yourself.
I appreciate that, man. Well, how can we not be fascinated with these hats?
That's right.
I mean, that's just one of those things when you see a guy with that hat on, you're like, I can hang with that guy. Well, fantastic. I've got a little bit of my cherry wheat left. Cheers to you, sir. Best of luck. Hope all goes well.
Thank you.
Everyone, thanks for watching. We're the Vann Cave. You can catch us on YouTube, obviously, where you are. Give us a like, subscribe, hit the bell. You will get notifications. We are also on Facebook, and the audio feed is thevancave.com. For anyone wanting to check this out, and I should have mentioned this at first, but we'll put it in the comments. We are available on just about any podcast platform. So wherever you get your normal audio and stuff like that, just search for us on the Vann Cave. I pay a service to put it on everything, so we get a lot of hits on that side. iTunes, I think we're on Spotify and a few others. So look us up. We're the Vann Cave. Cheers. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you for coming, sir.
Thank you.
All
Thank you,
right.
Matt. Bye.
Let's jam a little bit.